gentlemen, this is another episode of the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast, and I've got a very special guest here today, and his name is Carter Decker. Even though we did have a tough loss, Carter, to the Minnesota Vikings, and kind of a pathetic game from the Green Bay Packers, I mean, really did not play their best, and everybody, this is a couple episodes in our podcast is all about the Packers and everything else around the NFL. We do enjoy Packer football, and we do make the most of it here in the early going. I mean, Carter's a huge fan. He's a good friend of mine. Obviously, a great insider to have on board, and one of the guys that I really like to have for talking football. Now, a little bit background on Carter. He did play wide receiver for St. Norbert Green Knights. I know we kind of talked about that, that we are going to have a special guest, and yes, he was a receiver. I believe you wore number 83, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so he was number 83 for those Green Knights, big dog on the outside corner. Carter's a good guy. He also ran track and field, correct? What was your events for that?
For track and field, I did pole vault, long jump, triple jump, and then that was pretty much it. No running events for me. I did all my running in the fall time during football.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, once you get into those running games, it gets tricky. I mean, you're risking a lot. So you did like the pole vault, that sort of thing. That's great stuff. But let's talk about football here, Carter. That's what we're here for. That's what the people are here for. And it should be another great episode here, as I finally get a guest on the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast. And, well, we'll talk about it here. The Packers lose in just a pathetic performance, especially that first half. I mean, that was brutal to the Minnesota Vikings. They lost, 31-29 in the game. Really, they kind of came back and could have won. Very good competition. Packers first half looked like cheeks, but they really couldn't get anything going, and nothing really happening for them. I know you did a little bit. You did a little bit of film session with this game, correct?
Yeah, I went back and just decided to rewatch it all slowly, watch offense, defense, just go back. First time round, it was just kind of hard to watch, to be honest with you. It was, like you said, just not great performance in the first 3 quarters of the game. It took us a long time to get started, so be honest, I wasn't paying as much attention the first time round, but that's why I went through the second time and just forced myself to go through all the bad plays and just see what's up.
Yeah, and that was a brutal one. I ended up walking out a couple minutes early before that last touchdown, because I was just like, after that pick by Jordan Love late in the game, and we'll talk about his stats and his performance in that one. I was getting fed up, and the Vikings fans doing their skull chant. I just wasn't going to hang around for it. Something that I really didn't like to see at Lambeau Field, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Why I think there was that there, and all sorts of stuff. We got a great episode here, ladies and gentlemen. Even with a Packers loss, I know it's fantastic that we can put together such a show. And I'm really thankful that Carter was able to make it on the show this week. I really do appreciate it. I hope to have him back a couple times, obviously throughout the season, and looking forward into the football season as well. But yeah, so let's talk about the stats here. We have Jordan Love, 32 for 54, 389 yards, 4 TDs, 3 interceptions. And his game back it was the game back. First game back from injury. Now on the other side, it was Sam Darnold, 20 for 28. He had 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Of course, Mr. X-Man, Xavier McKinney getting that big pick. He's always been doing that. But Love seemed a bit off with the receivers in this one. And I know that's probably going to be a tempo kind of thing, just getting back into that game level play. And as an experienced receiver, you worked with quarterbacks obviously a lot, and you had to work on that timing of routes and different things. Now, what is that like for a quarterback coming back into the game and trying to figure out, get back in routine with his receivers, especially his number ones like he had to with Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Dobbs, and then Christian Watson, who did end up getting hurt in that game. He took a tough hit. That one, before Christian Watson would get hurt, and then it was like, oh, I don't know. But this one, I could see why he got hurt. I mean, that was a tough hit. But tell everybody about that, that getting back in tempo with your quarterback.
So, I mean, obviously at a different level. I mean, they're professionals. They do this every single day. There's no days off for them. Now, obviously, missing 2 weeks of game time and practice time is huge. But Jordan, the receivers, they really should have been on key. They have been on key, pretty for the last half of last year, and then they started off decently hot the first 2 games, and then I see what happened. And I think it was just everything just seemed to go wrong. It wasn't even the timing. For me, it was a lot of the drops. It seemed like we had a lot of drops across the board. Obviously, the tip ball into the interception by Kraft and by Dobbs, it was really hard to watch, especially when they both touched it. Um, the timing was there. It was a little off, but that's to be expected when you miss. And it's not easy going from a quarterback who just comes into the room. I mean, they're still practicing with Sean Clifford, but when Malik Willis comes in the room, that's a completely different arm, different timing, different everything. So for the last 2 weeks, they've been trying to figure that out. And then, unfortunately, when Jordan does come back, he's practicing a little bit different. He's going to think about that knee regardless. So he took a little bit more time getting used to it than we would typically see, but again, to be expected when you got a hurt knee like that and you're coming back in the quarterback position.
Yeah, and I think those are some great points. Talking about the different quarterbacks that they had to go through. That receiving core had to get adjusted to Malik Willis. Now, didn't really throw the ball too much with him. Gave him a few opportunities, but wasn't really interested in that throwing game. And they ran the ball a lot more. Now we'll kind of lead into our rushing game, which was pretty brutal as well. Not real good from Josh Jacobs, 9 carries, 51 yards. And then on the other side, the enemy now, Aaron Jones, he had 22 carries, 93 yards. And all I got to say is thank God he did not score in that contest because I know it was going to be really loud in Lambeau and it was going to be from the purple and gold and not the green and
Yeah.
gold. And I really did not want to see it. I was one of the few guys probably booing him a little bit because I personally believe, yes, I loved Aaron Jones when he went to or was with Green Bay. But when you have 30 other teams or 31 other teams to pick from on that trade market or that getting free agent market, and you go to the guy the team that plays us 2 times a year and has been competitive with us for the last few years. We haven't really won at home with against them. We've had more success actually at US Bank Stadium, but I thought that was kind of a dig, and I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're gonna be a schmuck if you boo him," and I'm like, you know what? I'm already framed as that. Might as well just keep it up, get those credentials back. But yeah, so I was not. I clapped for him when he came out of the tunnel, got the introduction and everything like that. But once after that, it was like, no. Once you touched the ball, man, you left us. I mean, not necessarily leave. There's obviously front office negotiations that didn't go well there, and but to pick a team that plays us twice a season, I think is kind of a personal dig from him. But what did you think of the running game in this contest? Did you see anything special from either back, or did you see anything that you were not expecting?
No, I actually was the opposite of that. I didn't want him to score because I want us to win, period. But of everybody that left, I'm a big Aaron Jones fan. I think he was awesome. Yeah, he did go to the enemy, so it sucks seeing him in purple. At the end of the day, he wrote a nice letter to us. The letter was super businesslike and very nice to us. I was a little worried. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought he was going to go off for like 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. So I'm glad we held him to under 100, but still, 93 yards on 22 carries. That's pretty good for him. 4.2 average. And he had a few good breakout runs as long as being that 17 yarder. He also had a few good screen catches too. So he was doing both in the passing game and in the running game, just how we used him. And really did come to bite us in the butt there. But I have a note here that I like how we're using Josh Jacobs to a certain extent. However, we had him have exponential amount of carries last game against the Titans. Then we bring him back and we only give him 9 carries for the entire game, especially when we're not throwing the ball well in the first half. And I know we got to catch up and play that game, but at that point, I think we should have relied a little bit more on the ground game. Just try to get him moving and running because he did have a few good breaks. He had a long of 13, but a few that could have went for a good amount of yardage. Had let's see, one got called back for a penalty, which is also kind of a big mistake there. But um, I really like Emmanuel Wilson. I think he
I
is
do too.
becoming a really good secondary back. Unfortunately, this might be a hot take, but I think our other backs are probably not going to have too much time out on the field, even when they do come back. I think Emmanuel Wilson's going to be a super solid number two. He's pretty shifty, but he does get downfield real hard. So I like the combo between the two. I just wish that Josh Jacobs had a few more meaningful carries. Maybe not like 20 or 30 carries because that's crazy. Maybe 12, 13 carries where they were a little bit more meaningful on downs where we could, it was either pass or run, and just give him a little bit more space to work with. It seems like we kept going back to the same plays, and they just kept getting stuff for him, and he wasn't really able to, get anything crazy going.
Yeah, and that's a good point that we did overuse them probably in those games against Colts Titans. Saw those kind of stats way up there, and kind of construed because if you do 9 carries and 51 yards, that's over 5 yards a carry if I'm doing my math correctly.
Yeah, looks like 5.7.
Yeah. Well, you're quite the mathematician over there,
I,
Mister Guy.
I got it up. Don't worry,
Once
I
again,
got
Carter Decker, ladies and gentlemen, he'll do your taxes and do them real well. No audits for that you. But yeah, I do like what they're doing with Jacobs. Getting him on pace. But yes, I would have liked them to see maybe some more power options with him. Running those kind of runs, just trying to get him outside from in between the tackles. Seemed like he had a lot of in between tackles, and trying to get him to the outside. Just try to let him cut it upfield. And now I do know, the Vikings now allegedly are one of the best pass rushing teams and most pressures. Now, I really don't
it.
believe that's going to hold. On the other hand, it is the factual statement. I believe they're averaging somewhere between, I can't even remember, I'm not going to take a guess, but they're up there in the top of the league with the pass rushing. But let's move over to the receiving section. Receiving was a big notice here. No Jair Alexander in this one, and that gave Justin
Yeah.
Jefferson the green light. But let's start with the Packers. Jaden Reed. I mean, my goodness, has that guy been really good for
Oh,
us? He has been awesome. And he had, so looking here, 22, or excuse me, 7 catches for 138 yards, 1 TD, 139. And then Justin Jefferson on the other side, 6 receptions, 85 yards, in 1 TD as well. I mean, the Michigan State man could be considered number one on this offense, even with Romeo Dobbs and all that other talent with Dontavian Wicks and sorts. What did you think of Reed's performance in this one, even though it was, one touchdown, but still a really good game. 7 catches, 139 yards, and he's been good all season.
he is just going bananas out there. And I really do think he does have a run at number one. I think you're completely correct, especially with just the injuries that have been coming to Christian. It's unfair that Watson's not getting the amount of playing time that he is, but it also kind of hurts when you get hurt. So I think Reed has done a great job at stepping up and trying to be that number one receiver. I'm a personal fan of Dobbs. I mean, I'm wearing the jersey. I think he's a great, great receiver. I think he's just got the sure hands again. Had a few mistakes out there and a few that were called back. Let's see, one was called back on replay that he dropped over the middle, and then the other one was obviously the tip ball for interception. So still got to clean up those hands on our side, but Jaden Reed just being the utility man out there almost kind of looks like a super fast Randall Cobb, just always being open, always being quarterback friendly, keeping his chest to the ball. And we can't, I mean, going up for that ball, for that touchdown was just awesome to watch. I wanted to talk a little bit more about that play specifically, just from the wide receiver quarterback standpoint. That touchdown pass was premeditated. I think he was going to go there the whole time. That's where it really showed that those two just have a lot of trust in each other. By the time Love had dropped back into his place where he was trying to sit, he had already thrown that ball up. He knew exactly where he was going to put it. He kept it away from the safety, and then Reed went up there knowing that we're down. We need something to get us going. We need some juice. You can't let opportunities slip at this point. And he went up there like Megatron and just grabbed it
Yep.
right off the top of his head. So it was a beautiful. It was like a work of art, at least from my perspective. It just looked awesome. There was no miscommunication there. There was a lot of trust. It just looked awesome scoring that touchdown for them. But he's just the utility man. He's getting everything, every opportunity that he gets, he's making the absolute most of it. You don't see him running out of bounds a lot. You don't see him laying down. You see him going hard, putting that shoulder down, and really trying his best. Follow up on that, Justin, we kind of actually held him down, which was a big if for us with Jair out, and I think we actually kind of suffered the consequences of that with a few plays. I would highlight the touchdown to, I believe it was Addison, where he had the little out route, came across the field, just got it, and Keyshawn Nixon missed the
Keyshawn's been
tackle.
brutal back there.
Yeah, he's been brutal. I think we would have maybe had a different package out there that would have kept Jair out there or kept another maybe Stokes out there or something. Um, and it just didn't look good. Keyshawn had a few missed tackles, but he also had some pretty good plays where he was locking down receivers, and he locked down Justin Jefferson, I think once, maybe once. I'd have to review that one here, but I think it was pretty good. It was pretty good play towards the end. Obviously, you got to start sooner than that. Starting in the second half of the third quarter isn't going to get it done, even when Love does throw for 389 yards. I mean, going crazy out there in the field, but need more than that, obviously, to win the game.
Yeah, and to your point, I think the Justin Jefferson touchdown would never happen if Jair was out there. I know I personally think that, and I think the gritty thing, the celebration that he had, uh, was really, it was obviously called for. Jair's done it. But given Jair wasn't out there, I don't think it had as much, leverage as I think he was hoping for.
Right.
Because he did kind of go like right in front of the ref. I believe he almost like tapped the ref's cap, which I almost thought was going to be unsportsmanlike. But without a
Even the
doubt,
ref gave him a little like, all
yeah,
right,
he
get
kind of
on,
said
you're
that's
done.
enough. That's enough. You're getting too close. Get out of my
Right.
face. But I don't think it had as much. I know Vikings fans. I've seen them on Twitter, and they've also been getting arguments with me on other sources. But I don't think it had as much leverage as he. I think they would have liked if. I mean, if it was Jair, he would have stood right over him, and probably a scuffle would have happened. Um, you know,
Oh yeah, Ja probably would have went at him.
yeah,
Maybe.
without a doubt.
Maybe.
I don't think Ja's going to do that. Take that, especially on his home turf. But with no Ja, does it really mean as much? I mean, you were a receiver. I know you're not really big into celebrations, or maybe you were. I don't know. I didn't see you play college ball, but maybe you were. Maybe you gave. I always liked the back in the day with Randy Moss where he'd like wave right when he started running, like he was open. And there's that story of Edelman doing that, and then Tom Brady yelling at him, "Unless you're Randy Moss, you don't do that." And that
Keep your
that
hand down.
I think that's pretty funny, just in that sense. But were you big boaster back in the day or nah?
Oh, man, I talked plenty. Obviously, keep it between the lines, between the whistles. I was never one to do anything extremely extra, but I'm also not one to back down.
Well, you can't.
Had a few opportunities to do some small celebrations, nothing crazy. I'm a big team celebrator though. I love to jump with the linemen, get thrown in the air, have some fun with the boys. Not much of a solo celebrator, but yeah, watching him gritty like that in our stadium didn't leave a great taste in my mouth, but be expected when you got the number one receiver in the league. I'm glad we, like I said, held him to only 6 receptions on 85 yards. That's still 14.2 average, which isn't great for us. I mean, we got to lock that down. But for the best receiver in the league, and with us being down our best corner, I think we did okay. I think Sam Darnold did a great job of dispersing the ball, though. He got the ball to everybody. Um, Everyone was touching the ball, and it kind of kept us confused. We started focusing way too much on Jair, and which was good because we held him, but
You mean
started
Jefferson?
opening up other lanes and yeah, started causing some problems elsewhere.
Yeah, without a doubt. But now let's flip the side. Let's flip the field a little bit. Let's talk about that defense. Now they came in with a really playing really good football, and it seemed like in this one just not very good. Pressures on that offense or defensive line was not pretty. Weren't getting through. Weren't able to get really too many touches on Sam Darnold, which I would have liked to see more. And we got to talk about the guy that just got paid, and it really has been quiet to open up this season, Mr. Kenny Clark. And I really like Clark. I think he's a good player. I think him and Slayton, whether it's Slayton or Wyatt up front, I think they're a good combo. But he's really been quiet. And is there any concern with you with Kenny Clark just beginning the season and getting all that money this offseason and not really making any noise?
I wouldn't say it concerns me right now. I think at the moment we did give him a lot of money, of course, but he's doing a great job at least clogging it up. Now, is he getting to the quarterback? No. But this whole game was just bad for us. We didn't touch the quarterback until 7 minutes and 51 seconds into the third quarter. No, we didn't get a single sack in the first half, hardly any pressures. We weren't getting to him. I think he's doing a good job of clogging up the middle. They didn't run very hard up the middle. Now, did they get Aaron Jones in some space and did he, squeeze through there? Of course, he's Aaron Jones. Um, but I'm not very concerned at the moment. I think we have plenty of time to catch up. I would like to see, um, obviously a few more hits on the quarterback, but at the moment, we just gotta keep going. I think this game was just bad for us all around. We started to get to him a little again. We just got way too hot, way too late. That seems to just be the overarching theme of the game, whether it's offense, defense, special teams. Um, we just got way too hot, way too late. And when you got when you got a deficit like that, and you got multiple turnovers, it's very hard to come back. And we got pretty close, but I'm not concerned about our defense right now. I think we'll get better as time goes on, and I think Kenny Clark's going to get his time. But he's doing his job. He's being a distraction. He's clogging up people. He's taking on double teams. And he's making some tackles in the run game, but I think we could also see a few sacks from him. I'd love to see him.
Yeah, I'd like to see here number 97 getting those sacks. Big man Kenny up the middle from UCLA. He's one of my favorites. It was a guy I guess we were going to draft. I was pretty special, like on the draft board. I said we are going to get him. Um, and so that was pretty special. But yeah, he's been a little bit disappointing in the early goings, but I have full confidence he's going to bounce back. Yes, he is getting up there in age, and I think he's probably in his final contract. Um, but that's just going to happen, and I think he along with, I mean, the edge rushers didn't really get to Darnold either. Nobody was really getting to him. You have like Van Ness, Gary. Gary was quiet too, and that's a guy that I'm expecting to have a huge season. And he's been a little quiet, at least in that one. But it would be nice to see them get in production. But let's talk now here. It was something I brought up to you before we even went on the show a couple days ago. We talked about the number of Vikings fans at Lambeau Field, and it's always kind of embarrassing because I am always brought back to the Lions game last year when we got blown out. It was probably like 40-0 or something like that, 47, and it was when Jordan Love was still trying to figure out the cogs in our machine and trying to figure out where he fits in. And it felt like that game Sunday, there was a ton of Vikings fans there. And personally, that purple makes me just want to puke. Just something that's always been going, or as Matt LaFleur would say, I want to vomit. I did not like to see the purple there, but it was a gold package game. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what a gold package game means, those tickets were originally they're like 4 tickets out of the season, so it's kind of a season tickets holders, but they automatically get part of those tickets, and they're Milwaukee residents that typically get those because Packers used to play down in Milwaukee back in like the 80s and 90s, and now they no longer do, but they still get those packages, and they have a tendency to sell them off. And they did that. That happened last year with that Lions game, and that's why we had that sea of blue. But what was your opinion on the fans? Because you could definitely hear some Vikings fans there, and I would like it, all green and gold. But I know that's never going to happen at Lambeau.
Yeah, it's really hard to stop the flow. I mean, it's hard to regulate that kind of trade and such, but it was a bit disappointing. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the game. I was just down the street watching it on TV. So even seeing some of the flashes of the stands, there was a lot of purple out there, and unfortunately, they travel well. A lot of people like coming to Lambeau, so I can't blame them either. Now, do I wish some of those tickets were sold to in-state people and Packer fans? Absolutely. Um, I do kind of appreciate the little bit of back and forth, though. I feel like divisional games like this are super fun when there's not just one, it's not one-sided. You feel like you got a good mix. There's a lot of cheering on one side and there's a lot of cheering on the other. However, when they come into our stadium and they put up that many points in the first half, and all you hear is skull and all you hear is the Vikings chants, it does not feel good. So that one definitely struck deep for me. But I do like to see a little bit of competition. I like to see, like if we were going down to Chicago, I'd love to see a bunch of gold in the stadium, green and gold that is, as opposed to having a ton of orange and navy in there. So I like the challenge. I like the fact that they came in and they traveled well, but it didn't end up working out for us. And that's just someone's got to lose at the end of the day.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm a little bit on the other side, especially with a place like Lambeau. I'd like to keep it green and gold as much as we can. I understand that people like to travel and like to be at the historic Lambeau Field, that sort of thing, and I get that. And I talked to a lot of Vikings fans, very friendly people, but there were a couple that weren't so friendly, and I got a little agitated because you get that little buzz on, you get a little agitated, and you're just like, forget it, man, like forget you now. I understand why, again, I understand that it's the competition of it. I would like to see us more like a Philly crowd, just really kind of all home team. And if you're not, you don't want to be there. That was actually a game my brother and I were planning on going to if they played in Philly. Now they played in Sao Paulo this year because we were gonna go there with our Packers stuff and just see what happens, just for fun. Because I mean, there's still laws in Philly, right? There's still got to be laws. Like, Yeah.
Something like that, right?
If I go missing, they still have to look for me. I can't just be like, oh, he was a Packer fan at the Philly game. There's still got to be laws. It's where our nation was like founded. They gotta have all that there. And without a doubt, I mean, you when you get that purple there, it's fine. It's whatever. It happened. But I'd like to see a little bit less of it. Come on, Packers fans, we got to fill up Lambeau and we got to fill it tight. Yeah, and just keep that green and gold in there because every time I hear a bump, 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 I want to hear "Go Pack, go!" or and that's the Packers, and everybody points to one way, first down with Bill Jarts and the PA system. But let's talk about the game this week. Packers take on the Rams. Now the Rams, they've had their struggles here in the early going of the season. They lost already to the Lions. Now they lost to the Bears. And what is the expectation for this one? What are you expecting out of this game?
This is going to be our bounce back game, I think. Offensively, defensively. Speaking on defense first, real briefly, it's pretty simple. Their top two receivers are unfortunately not doing so hot right now. Both Puka and Cup are, I believe, out at the moment, but I believe Puka has a chance of coming back, if I'm not correct.
I know Cup's out. I think Puka might. I don't think he's gonna though.
So yeah, I mean their top two receivers are out, and now kind of falls on the shoulders of Tutu Atwell to really go out there and ball. And Matt Stafford's got to make some plays, and of course their running backs got to go super hard. But I think this is where our defense is really going to step up and really take shape. I think we're going to shut down the passing game, which is just going to create a bunch of opportunities for a loss of yards for our boys up front. Like you said, Kenny Clark, I think he's going to be up there
Big man
stuffing the
Kenny.
run. Yep. They're going to have to go to the run game a lot. Matt Stafford's not going to like it, but he's going to have to run the ball quite a few times. And I think our boys going to be ready for that. I think with our secondary being a little banged up at the moment, I think we'll still be okay. I think our secondary is fantastic. I think they did a decent job. And just too hot, too late last game for really stepping it up and defending the pass. But offensively, I think this is going to be Jordan Love's another Jordan Love game. This is going to be what we would come to expect. Going to be pretty plain and simple. I think they're going to keep the game plan very straightforward. We're going to get the ball out of Love's hands pretty quick. We're going to try and get it to our playmakers, especially now with Watson being out for most likely 4 weeks with the possibility of IR. Um, we're going to probably slow down the pass game just a little bit, make more dink and dunks than chunk plays. But Matt LaFleur, he's going to throw in those chunk plays as soon as he can. And I think this is really where we need to get Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson as the dual threat running backs. I think we really need to get them involved. Teams don't really seem to respect Emmanuel Wilson like they should. But I know that they respect Josh Jacobs, so they're really going to soften up or harden up the run when Josh is out there. And I think we can get him involved in the pass game. And then Emmanuel Wilson, when we put him out there, I mean, he's just going to bulldoze through anybody. So I think we got a good shot. Um, I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a very basic game. I think it's not going to be anything too extravagant. I think we're just going to try and get back on the tracks and just try and play Packer football.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Just plain Packer football is a great way to say it. I'm on the same page with you. I don't think it's going to be that exciting of a game. I'm expecting the Packers to come out with a W, and I like your take on Emmanuel Wilson because Emmanuel Wilson is a guy that I think a lot of people are putting like at the third string if Marshawn Lloyd's healthy, but I really see him as a true second string. I mean, the dude runs hard. And he doesn't. He
Oh,
has a very unforgiving run. Like if you're gonna be standing in his way, he's gonna make contact with you, and you're gonna feel it. He's gonna hit you like a dump truck, and you're gonna feel sore the next day. Because that's what I love about him. And given that teams are underestimating him, let him do that. Let him be that guy. He's been very good in the early going. I mean, he's shown a lot of progression since when he played a little bit last year, especially late in the season. But he's shown a lot of progression from then and becoming kind of a true runner because last year he was used a lot in the pass game, and he's been really kind of putting that forefront forward. And I think the Packers go to that run. They reestablish it a little bit. You got to wear down that defense. You got to get them collapsing towards that line for that activation of the right wide receiver corps. We do have lots of talent on our receiving corps. I'm not going to doubt that. The other thing I would like to see us do one of these days is run two tight end sets. Like if we can, because we have two very talented tight ends. And like I think we have one of the best, most underrated tight end rooms in the league with Tucker Kraft and then Luke Musgrave. I mean, am I wrong here? Are we like we could totally run that,
I,
and it would be electric. And I'm not saying it would be Hernandez Gronkowski back in 2000, you know, 8 or whatever it was when they ran that double tight ends and then they put out, they had Moss on the outside. I mean, that was just elite. But whatever the case is, but if we run a two tight end, that gives the team a whole different look. And yes, I do like our fast receivers with Wicks and Reed and Watson when he's healthy and Dobbs in there too. They're all really fast. Even Dobbs, like Dobbs is seen as like a kind of older. I would say like from the team standpoint, he's a really young dude and he can run really fast. And I saw some highlight tape today of him doing kind of a cut. He kind of cut across went to the second level where the linebackers were, and then he stopped on a dime and came back towards the end zone. And it was like, wow, that is tight. And I didn't know he had him in it, but you want to call him old man because he's been around 3 years, but he's really a young guy. And I mean, I love our receiving core, so I'd like to see the tight ends get involved a little bit more. And I just want to see Jordan Love get comfortable in this game. Last game, it seemed like pressure. You had to rally up. You obviously were down big, and you had to put something together. Let's score on the first drive, and then let's just keep a good constant pace of scoring, even if it's a field goal. Just keep adding to the board. Lay that pressure off on the defense. They've been playing really good, and I give a lot of credit to Jeff Hafley for that. He kind of turned around that Joe Barry defense, and we've seen a lot of different things with that 4-3. And it'll be interesting to see, but I really hope we just have a good paced game. And I got to say the Packers should take the dub in this one. And I would be honest if I'm going to say 28-14 Packers, just because I think we can put up 4 scores. And I think now our field goal kicking situation is a whole nother issue with Narvison. We may have a tryout video if you would like to join in on the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast where you can kick a field goal. If you can kick it, we can try to send you to the Packers' way, but there's no guarantee you're going to make the team. But Carter and I might kick some field goals, have some fun, and just give it a shot because it is tougher than it looks. I mean, you see it on the Pat McAfee every Saturday morning, and it's tough. I mean, I don't think I'd fold under pressure, but I might there.
That's a lot of pressure. I mean, Narverson is not doing so hot, and it kind of has been the story so far, just in the last few years, is just field goals, man. Um, they didn't seem that important in the beginning when we were losing so bad. It was like, oh, okay, missed a field goal, whatever. Then they came back to haunt us because we would have won it pretty well if we had just made our field goals. Now he is making his extra points, which is nice. I'm glad he's still making those, of course, but
Yeah,
yeah, it might be some time to get in a little bit more competition in there. It almost kind of makes you think was losing Greg Joseph,
I
a
liked him.
Minnesota Viking, was that even though he was a little bit on the older side, was that a mistake and not just keeping the veteran around and maybe just putting our eggs in that basket? But I'm hoping Darvison can come out. Seems like everyone in the locker room loves him. Seems like he's made a great impression on the coaches, on the media, and of course on his teammates. So we're all pulling for him. We all want him to be successful, and of course we want those points. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the Packers coaching staff is going to do about it.
And I really have now. I'm more overconfident with this Packers team than most people are, and I'll be honest about that. A lot of I've heard that you're overhyping this Packers team, but I almost think if this Packers team plays well and they get on a full everybody's clicking on everything routine, they can win without a kicker. They could win. They don't need that 3 points because they're going to be so far ahead. But right now we're at that point where we need the kicker, and we've shown it. And last game with those 6 points that were missed, it really kind of came to bite us in the rear end, and it didn't look good. And I was getting frustrated at that point, and that's when you have to get a piece of pizza or something just to cool off and have something to chew on while everybody all the purple around me cheered and did their little skull thing and like they're big intimidating creatures from the west. Yeah, no, I mean a lot of good people from Minnesota. I'm not dissing it, but wasn't real happy with the purple out there. Wasn't real happy, especially when you see the arms go up and like do the YMCA crap. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys have no culture. Yeah. But let's move ahead here. Let's move ahead here in the show. We are about a little bit over 30 minutes in the show, but let's move ahead here and we'll talk about some other teams in the NFC North. We'll talk about some of their news, and we'll start with the Bears. The Bears beating the Rams 24-18. Caleb Williams, is he back? We don't know, but he had a solid showing in 17 for 23, 157 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, nothing I would say really impressive yet from Williams in that quarterback position, but he got a W under his belt in one that seemed like it was his first like offensive game, because that first game they won against, I think it was Indianapolis, or the no, it wasn't. It was the, I can't even remember. Anyways, it was all defense in that one,
Oh,
that first game of the season, and he went for like 85 yards. And obviously, I like to give crap to the Bears fans. You know, you guys are still trying to find that quarterback. But have you seen anything impressive yet from Williams here in the early going?
I'll be honest. I am a huge Packer fan, but I do occasionally like I told you earlier, I'm a huge competition fan. I love competition over everything. So I really want the Bears to be competitive. And it kind of sucks because I like Justin Fields. You know, when he came out of Ohio State, now he's blossoming out there in Pittsburgh. Now you have Caleb Williams, who was fantastic in college out there at USC, and now he's on the Bears and he's not doing so great. Kind of seems like there's something there that's not the quarterback's fault. Feels like there might be maybe a culture issue or maybe a coaching issue where they're kind of holding them back, or something's just not clicking over there. They have every single weapon imaginable. You got DeAndre Swift, the dual threat running back. You have wide receivers from everywhere that are just oozing with talent, and we just can't get they can't get the ball downfield. It's crazy. Only 156 yards. It's very menial, and I think they can do a lot better. I think Caleb Williams needs to show a lot more before everyone starts really thinking about keeping him around. But I also think the coaching staff needs to maybe take a look inward, because it seems to be a trend where the quarterbacks are going to, decent quarterbacks are going to the Chicago Bears and they're leaving a lot less valuable than they did coming in.
Yeah, and Ryan Poles, I don't think is a genius, as Bears fans have been preaching all offseason. They kept on preaching that Ryan Poles is a genius. Ryan Poles is a genius. Ryan Poles is just doing what's in front of him. I said it in the offseason, and I got a lot of flack from my buddy who's a Bears fan, saying you guys didn't build up your O line at all with that first round pick. Not now, given there wasn't a ton of great talent in that first round for linemen. I think Joe Alt was the best probably prospect out there with the Chargers now. But yeah, the Bears, I think they do have a culture problem right now. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I like competition too, but I also like to win competition. I don't need the. I'm okay with the Bears sucking. That's fine with me. Now, not to say they suck, because we kind of suck too right now. But we'll see what happens with them. But I was definitely haven't seen anything from Caleb Williams. Now I know he did have a big college career, and once again, there has been mentions that he played in the Pac-12, wasn't really the best conference in football. Now has fallen apart basically to, I think, only two teams or whatever. Now, like Oregon State or something. But anyways, now they're part of the Big Ten, right? Correct?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, they're that weird one of the weird UCLA, USC, all part of the Big Ten. And I don't think he really had the QB competition out there. So I think that his numbers were a little bit inflated. But I did see talent. I mean, when he was playing actually his last year, not or 2 years ago. Now, when he was throwing, I think he had two 500-yard games or something like that. He was playing really well, and he wasn't turning the ball over at all. And it was something that was interesting to see, because I was like, this was before Jordan Love actually got going, got his start. We had confidence in Jordan Love. This was when Rodgers left, and we were still in question of who's gonna fill in that role, and is it gonna be Jordan Love? If not, what else are we gonna do? And I was on the side of, if there is, now given he struggled in the beginning, but if there is no progress with Jordan Love throughout that first season, do we look at Caleb Williams? And I know he's gonna go early, obviously first. But he was a player that really caught my eye, just because it's kind of like a Caitlin Clark effect, where he's just doing something different. He was throwing for 500 yards. He had like 6 touchdowns in a game. Now, given the defenses weren't as good, and we're kind of seeing that makeup, and these are all pros now. These are all the best of the best, and the Pac-12 may have not had that at that time, but they were still a competitive conference. I mean, they had Oregon out there, really good school. Stanford at one time was really good with McCaffrey back in those days. But you keep looking back, and they looked really good. But yeah, not much from Caleb Williams, I guess. DeAndre Swift, and now I saw something comment. So if he had 16 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown. And one of the Packers like influencer guys, he was talking about DeAndre Swift, and he said if DeAndre bum ass Swift can get 93 yards and a touchdown in this one, Josh Jacobs better have 150 and two tutties in this one. But I thought it was the funniest thing. I mean, I was dying when I saw that tweet.
They've really been just misusing him. And I'll be honest, I have DeAndre Swift to my fantasy because I
Eesh.
thought I saw the writing on the wall when they draft or they took him over there. I was like, he was decent over there in Philly, and they didn't really like to run him very much. So I'm like, well, they get him involved out there in Chicago, and they can have a high-powered offense. They just have been tanking. Now, finally, he did score me a few good points there with that stat line. Yeah, I'd like to see him used a little bit more. I think Caleb Williams has potential, but you look at what the Packers do every time we have a quarterback, it just seems to work out. So wouldn't you think that maybe you get a veteran guy in there, you keep someone around long enough that they become a veteran, and you train your next set of quarterbacks so they have a little bit of time. It seems like they keep throwing these quarterbacks to the fire. And I know Caleb Williams has been keeping his head up in the social media and hasn't been talking down. He's been very, optimistic about the future of the Bears and very uplifting. But after a certain point, I mean, that's got to weigh on your brain. You don't play very well. You were told you're going to be this great thing, and then you don't really have a chance to really get the tires under you and going. Then suddenly you're irrelevant and you get shipped off to the Pittsburgh Steelers and you get your career revitalized. So it's interesting to see what they're doing over there. I don't mind beating the Bears. I love beating the Bears. So a few more years of this is fine, but I'd like to see Caleb Williams, really have his breakout game and do what maybe even a fraction of what he did out there at USC.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. But the Bears are in this weird situation where they were not a good team last year, and they did all this patchwork to fix up that offense. They re-signed DJ Moore to $120 million a year over 4 years, I believe. They got Romo Dunze in that eighth or ninth pick in that first round. They brought in Caleb Williams. They got Keenan Allen, which I have no idea why that dude gets hurt all the time. I mean,
Right.
he's literally glass. And then Cole Kmet. So they have a high-powered offense, but they didn't build up that line. They missed a big focal point. And there's that picture from last week with that Colts running through on the. It was like a fourth and goal or something. And yes,
Oh,
all of
laying
them
down.
flopped on the ground, looking up at the Colts defenders rushing after DeAndre
Right.
Swift, and he's got nowhere to go. But yeah, so the Bears just keep. I don't know why they're in this must win now. They don't want to go through the process again because they failed the first time, they failed the second time. They've been failing for years and they haven't figured it out. But I agree with you. I would put even if you're getting a losing season, you don't have a lot to lose here. You what did they win? 4 games last year? Or no, they
So
won more than
not
that.
great.
They won more than that. I think they won like I can't remember, but they didn't win many. Um, but they were pretty bad. So now you're in last place. You had the first pick because you traded with the Panthers the year before. You got a whole bunch of scraps. DJ Moore came with that package, and everybody else. And I think they got that Ondunze pick from that was their pick, and then they got a couple other picks later. But what is the wrong or what is I guess the problem with having a backup presence, an older veteran kind of showing Caleb the ropes. Yes, you're going to drop a few games in the beginning of the season, or maybe that whole season. You might not get him started right away, but all off season it was Caleb Williams is going to be the next, god of football. He's going to take over the franchise. He's going to lead them to victory. And then Nick Wright, going out and saying that they had a Super Bowl possibility, their most Super Bowl, orientated team for a rookie. And I was like you had you remember when he said that in FS1,
Right.
and he's like, oh, that this is the best, most ready system. And now you see Jaden Daniels, a guy that really has a box of scraps. Tony Stark building his super suit in a or in a cave with a box of scraps, really doing
Right.
some things over there. And he was the second pick, but he was a national champion, um, and he obviously showing that he's very talented. And now I just saw today that the New York Giants GM, now they didn't have a chance to draft him, but if he fell later, the Giants GM's kid was laying on the couch as the his dad was drafting, and he said if Jaden falls, pick Jaden, and that would have been interesting over there because they had a solid team. Now, given they would have lost Saquon and they wouldn't have neighbors on that team, but they would still be a talented team over there in New York with Jaden. But he's doing things over there in Washington that like RG3 did back when he came
But
in as a rookie. And Caleb's just not able to find those strings quite yet. I'm not going to say he's not going to be able to because he is a talented quarterback nonetheless. Um, but yeah, I mean, and then the cockiness of, I mean, it was good camaraderie. It wasn't really cockiness. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to frame Caleb Williams that way. But the whole, oh, you're not going to punt that much thing that he
no, that
said,
was
yeah,
ignored.
that really didn't go into effect. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But do you have any other thoughts on that Caleb Williams just not getting that rest time? Do you know why maybe they've done that? And I think I hit it pretty spot on, but you might have some additional thoughts there.
I think you were pretty close with they just keep putting themselves in this Super Bowl must or bust like scenario, which of course everyone wants to win the Super Bowl, right? I want to win the Super Bowl. And I'll be honest, like you said, I have a lot of confidence in this team. I think we could win the Super Bowl. I think we have a lot of potential as the Packers. The Bears, they just keep it feels like they just keep rushing.
Yep,
And you're right. No one wants to have a losing season. No one wants to be the last in the NFC. And unfortunately, someone has to be though. So I think they should just. Well, it doesn't matter now because the season's already begun. But looking 2020 or looking back, you have 2020 vision. I think you would have liked to have seen him slow down a little bit. Maybe get a veteran quarterback in there that isn't going to give you a ton of wins, but he's going to show your newbie quarterback how to do it, or what's it looks like, and give him some time to work into that system. They keep rushing these quarterbacks that just don't seem to be very ready. Now, I would kind of point that towards, where they play. I mean, down in LSU, at least Caleb Williams. I know Justin Fields was out there at Ohio State, but Caleb Williams out there at the SNC with not, or excuse me, USC. Didn't have the most competition in the world, but then you got Jalen Daniels down in the Bayou at LSU, absolutely tearing it up. And of course, he played at Arizona State prior to that, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, so he started in kind of a smaller conference, but then worked up in the SEC and tore it up down there. And like you said, he did it all. He checked off all the boxes when he was down there in college, and then went up to Washington with not the greatest amount of team, but he went out there and just decided to ball out. So I guess my point is almost contradicting because he was able to do it, but why isn't Caleb Williams able to do it? So seems like there's like I keep going back to the culture and the coaching at the Bears. Um, because Washington doesn't have a great culture. I mean, they
No,
haven't been known for
no.
having the best culture in the world. As a matter of fact, they've been the quite opposite recent times. So it seems crazy to me that, they get a little bit of a reset and then they just go and take off running. And then Caleb Williams gets in there, gets all these weapons, gets all this stuff, and just can't put it together. But he has the legs, so I feel like the lineman standpoint is a huge point. He definitely needs a better lineman, but he had those legs in college and he was very mobile, very out of the pocket, and he was accurate out of the pocket. You have yet to see that um, in a larger scale in the NFL. So I think he's got potential. I think it might come back, but we'll just have to see. It looks like the Packers are going to be winning a few more times until they get the reins on it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, without a doubt. I think the Packers are going to get a few more wins with it. Now, let's move forward. Let's look at the Lions here. The Lions beat the Seahawks once again 42-29. Goff had a great game. 18 for 18, 292 yards and two touchdowns. Gibbs 14 carries, 78 yards, two touchdowns. So are the Lions the real deal?
No, it really does look like it. I mean, the last few years they've been playing phenomenal. Jared Goff has really stepped up. He's made a name for himself. I mean, of course he had one before, but he's really starting to just kind of show out. And Dan Campbell is he's just one heck of a head coach. That's what I'll say. He constantly gets those boys rolling. He does great at using what's available to him, and I love his mentality of let's just go, go, go. I remember watching that one drive in overtime. I think that was week 2 for them, or maybe week 3, where Kenneth Walker, or excuse me, not Kenneth Walker, Montgomery just took the ball and ran it and ran it and ran it. Barely threw the ball in that possession. So it seems like they have a lot. lot to prove, and they got a lot on their shoulders that they're trying to get off, and they're trying to really that Super Bowl contender. I think if the Detroit Lions had a better time, or I don't think there'd be a better time for them to just go all in and just fully commit to the Super Bowl run. I think they got a great team. I think they got great players. I think they got to do it now. I think they are the real deal. I think they're going to stay in the lead of the NFC. I know technically the Vikings are the lead of the NFC right now, but it's a lot of season left. My prediction for the end of the season is that we're going to see Lions up at one. The Packers are going to make a swift comeback and sit up there at two. The Vikings are going to, stay pretty consistently good, but they're going to lose a few key games down the stretch. And they're going to sit down at three. And then unfortunately, the Bears are just not putting it together right now. So I'd imagine they end up at fourth in the NFC North.
See, I'm gonna go on the other side here, and I'm gonna give you the other side. I don't think the Lions are the real deal. I don't. They
Wow.
snuck out against the Rams in OT. I mean, they barely beaten their opponents. This is the first time they kind of had a commanding win this season, and for a team that was supposed to be kicking in the teeth and move on, they really haven't shown it. And then now I see all their fan bases going for like free agents, talking about getting Max Crosby, looking at Devontae Adams. They feel like they need pieces and they don't have them. I don't think Goff's going to be the guy that leads you down a victorious run. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a solid fit. I think he's going to be like a Matt Ryan at the end of his career. You're going to look at him like a Matt Ryan, just kind of a good place guy. Not never a bad quarterback, but always solid. I just never had a lot of confidence in Goff, and I never will. And I always hope the Packers come out on top on the Lions. Last year, I think was a fluke, and I think Dan Campbell said it best in his post-game press conference after they blew the 17-point lead. That might have been our only shot, and I certainly hope it is. Let's go Pack, baby. I mean, I would like to see the Pack get back in that spot and get back into that NFC Championship game. Because I think if there is a team, this is the team this year. This is a really good team we have here. Yes, we gotten off to a rocky start, but Jordan Love's also been hurt. I think we have a lot of talent, a lot of young talent, a lot of cheap talent. Now everybody's under rookie contracts. We're one of the cheapest teams in the league, and our average age I think is like 25 years old, which is my age. But I think Lions. I think they're falling off. I mean, I think Dan Campbell's offense has been figured out. Last year they had the most explosive offense. This year now it's the Packers in the first four games. Now this last game probably not going to help their rankings. It's going to fall a little bit.
Sure.
But in the first four games, the Packers had the most explosive offense. According to some graph, I know I saw like a graph showing bar graph, and Packers were up top with this young squad. And now with Josh Jacobs in the backfield, that adds a whole nother element to our offensive game that I really don't think have cracked the code yet, quite yet. But I think once we do, it's going to be really explosive. And I think if we get Josh Jacobs in that passing game, I mean, watch out. You're not even going to want to sit down because you're going to be standing up because it's going to be go pack go and ba 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 and the touchdown scores and the fireworks and everything else. So I really think the Packers and I mean I think the Lions are good. I think they're going to finish second, but I just don't see them winning the North this year again.
You still have Minnesota and then Chicago as third and fourth then?
Now originally I had Minnesota last, but given how they're starting and Sam Darnold's looking now, I don't think Sam Darnold's going to keep this pace up. I think it's kind of a Lynn Sandy thing, that kind of era. But I think right now, with what Minnesota's doing with that offense, the fact they're using Aaron Jones correctly, the fact they have Addison and Jefferson on that offense, and that defense is looking solid, I think that's going to be a really good team. And I think they do take third probably. And I don't have a lot of confidence in the Bears. Never have, never will. I think it's like you said, the culture problem there. Chicago was once a great team, and they're just stuck in their have to win the Super Bowl this year, or it's a bust of a season. I said for the Bears this season, if they can make the like a wild card spot, I'd be happy as a clam as a fan. You know, at least finish with a positive record here at the end of the season if I was a Bears fan, because that's a progress, that's a step forward. Right now they've always been this way too, in this idea that well we have to win now because tomorrow's not never going to come, but they're just not set up for it, and I think they put a lot of pressure with Caleb Williams, comparing him to the Michael Jordan of the Chicago Bears, and I'm like, come on, clowns. Like let's calm down a little bit. Let's take a step back. he's got you got to let him get in his ways before he can, or got to let him figure it out before you can just make those claims, and those claims have no backing to them. And I just think I don't think the Bears are it. I think they're going to finish fourth, just like you said. But let's do a quick power rankings check. So Chiefs are 1, Vikings 2, Bills 3, Lions 4, Bucks 5, Seahawks 6, Ravens 7, Texans 8, 49ers 9, and Commanders, they make the top 10, and Packers fall at 11 after the loss. But any any teams that you think are frauds inside that power rankings?
Oh gosh. Here, let me see if I can. There we go. Frauds, I think it was pretty accurate this week. I'll be completely honest with you. It was all right. I always think, me personally, I think we should always be higher than we ever are. But with the way that we're playing, it's to be expected. Um, with the Vikings being as high as they are, I think it's overhyped. Like I said, Linsanity run, they're doing great right now, and Sam Darnold, it's just he's playing out of his mind, which I'll give it to him. He is playing fantastic. He's getting his opportunity. He's really showing it. I just think down the line, it's just not going to be sustained. I
Yeah.
think at some point they're going to hit a roadblock. Teams are going to start figuring out what they're doing. Defenses are going to get a little bit better. Um, and of course, it's going to be a season. So I think the Vikings are going to fall quite a bit by the end of the season. I'd like to see the Packers jump up a little bit higher. Where did they have the Cowboys ranked on there?
Didn't have them top 10.
That's actually perfect because I was going to say if they were top 10, that's absolutely
No, there's a lot
insane.
of problems down there. I think the only fraud team, and I'm going to say it here, and I know there's going to be a lot of, whatever, this quarterback is, better than they expect. I don't think Texans are as good as they come out to be, especially in the
Really?
early go. I do not. I thought they were going to be a team that really came out this second season, kind of punched every team in their mouth, and yet we've seen them come in close games with the Bears. They did have a loss now to Minnesota as well, and that one wasn't even close. That was like 34-7 or something like that, which was a really brutal showing. Um, I don't know what happened. I think once again it's going to be the Stephon Diggs curse that kind of followed along. That phantom of a ghost following along. But if I had to choose a team that I really don't think we're going to see in that top 10 range, I mean, I'm probably going to be wrong, and I'll probably repost this, 10 weeks later saying, "Wow, was I wrong here?" And then we'll show the video. But I think the Texans, if any team on there, is going to be a fraud. I think the Commanders are really good. I mean, I think they're really doing good things. And Jaden Daniels kind of playing to perfection, kind of a Lynn Sanity thing. I would say like an RG Griffin run. Just not really expected. Didn't nobody? I don't think anybody saw it. I mean, we knew he was going to be a good quarterback, but did we know he's going to be this good? I don't think anybody could have expected that. But I think Commanders, they'll fall out of the top 10 eventually. We'll get through. I hope Packers get in there, obviously. And then, another team, probably the Cowboys, are probably going to make it up there eventually. There's just too much talent down there. I know they've had problems with the offseason signings, with, like getting those contracts renewed and everything like that. And like Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, all kind of upset with contract negotiations. Dak Prescott not happy with how things are working out there. I don't think they're going to be a real threat in the playoffs. I think Mike McCarthy's team is kind of, hate to say it, but I think they're going to fall apart. And yeah, so I think the top 10 or the power rankings for this week are look pretty solid. And then let's close out the show with the biggest, just because we are running to that hour mark at this point. Let's close out the show with some of the hottest news here. And let's talk about our former receiver, Devontae Adams. He's looking for a trade from the Silver and Black, the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, what team do you think he's going to go to?
I have been racking my brain all since the news broke. I've just been racking my brain. I've talked to so many people. I've talked to family members, and it just seems like everyone's got a different opinion. I even had my brothers. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna get him back. We're the Packers gonna grab him."
No.
I don't think he's never coming here. And let's be honest, Monte Adams doesn't want to go anywhere where yeah, let's put it like this. I'll tell you where he doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to go somewhere where the quarterback room isn't established. He doesn't want to go somewhere where he's going to have to worry about the same thing he's worrying back down there. He's not getting the ball properly. He's getting thrown into coffins. The team is just not. It's just not as a cohesive unit as they made it kind of seem their first year out with their new head coach. Um, I think he also wants to be the star, though. I think at the end of the day, Devonta Adams likes to be the star. He doesn't really want to share the limelight with a whole lot of other people. wants to be that guy where he's going to get the ball maybe 7 times out of 10. So I think that really limits his places. Um, I've seen a lot of talk of him going to somewhere in the NFC North, and I don't think he really would do that. I don't think he really has the desire to go anywhere in the NFC North. I think he's going to end up probably not moving. I think this has just been his way of saying I'm sick of this situation. We need to do something different. You're going to get me hurt, or you're going to lose me. I don't think he's actually going to end up being traded. Now, that might eat my words here, like you said, here in like 2 days when he gets traded or something. But he's actually going to end up staying. I think they're going to just work something out. They're going to pull someone from somewhere. They're going to just try and make him happy. Because if he does leave, where does that leave the Raiders? They don't really have anyone then. They got Max Crosby on defense. They don't really have a ton of other players that are those big, high, flashy, explosive players that are going to win you the game. So I'm very interested to see what happens. What do you think? Do you think he's going to go somewhere?
Yep, I think he's gonna leave. I think he might. Unfortunately, I think he might join Rodgers over in the Jets. But you did mention he wants to be the number one guy. But there's Garrett Wilson there, who's kind of that number one role out there in New York in the flashing lights. So I don't know if that would be an ideal market. Now, I think Devontae's a phenomenal receiver. I give him all the credit in the world. But he's a guy that sucks up a lot of receptions. We saw that with the Packers and Rodgers. It seemed like other guys would get open and then had to go to Devontae and double coverage because it was Devontae. Now the team I really don't want him to see sign with, which is they have shown interest. They haven't reported anything, or they haven't made like real serious moves. Is the Chiefs? I do not want him to see go with the Chiefs because I know they lost Rasheed Rice now with that injury, and I can see them if the Chiefs get him, the league's rigged. Like there's no other way to explain it. Like I'm done with it. Um, the other team I think that would be interesting. Now this is going to be they have expressed interest and they have shown they're doing really well in the opening gates and I think they're 3-1 maybe 4-0, 3-1 I believe, but they really really have shown a lot of potential here in the opening. Their quarterback's playing out of his mind, and that would be the Buffalo Bills. That would be a really explosive unit out there. Now, given it's going to be a totally different temperature for him, it's going to be from that hot air temperature to a very cold. I was in Buffalo last year. There's a lot of snow, and they get it from that lakefront debris. But I think the Buffalo Bills would be a really interesting team for him, and I really think it would help Josh Allen make a run towards that Super Bowl. And it's different than like having Stephon Diggs there. When they had Stephon Diggs there, I think Adams is far more consistent than Diggs is. As much as a receiver, I think Diggs, yes, he caused a lot of attention, obviously. Now they had some other, wide receivers out there. They lost Gabe Davis out there and everybody else. So they're kind of rebuilding, and they're kind of, once again, that box of scraps kind of offense. They're picking up guys, but they're doing it well. And Josh Allen is throwing like insane. I don't think he keeps that pace up, but I think if he gets Devontae, he's going to be close because he's going to get a lot of catches. I would put Devontae in the top three in route running. Um, in the league, he's a very, very finite route runner. He's going to hit his spots, and he's not going to miss. And, Josh Allen, when he's on, and it's a dangerous thing to see. So I think that would be a really fun thing to see and really fun team for him to be on.
The one thing that I couldn't get my head wrapped around is just the cap space and what teams would have to do
Oh
to
yeah,
get him to their.
he's carrying a
I
dump truck with
think
him.
I Right, because I don't know if he would really go for a 1 year deal where he wouldn't be able to solidify a spot for the next few years. I don't know if there's also a ton of teams that are willing to kind of fork over that kind of money. Now, let's say hypothetical money's not an issue. Going over to the Jets would be really cool. It'd be great for the reunion. It'd be great for the NFL. It'd be crazy. You're right. He sucks up a lot of attention from Rodgers specifically. Um, Garrett Wilson would start getting missed. I mean, what do you got? You probably got to lose Alan Lazard at that point,
Yep.
or someone like that. So it's like, okay, what kind of pieces are you going to sacrifice to get him over there? It'd be cool, 100%. But then the Buffalo Bills, I think that's actually a great take because Josh Allen has that playmaking ability of just get out there and just go nuts and play football. Monte Adams is at least was very used to that with Aaron Rodgers back in the green and gold. He was very used to seeing that play breakdown. All right, we got to do something different and we got to get open. does a phenomenal job of doing that, even when the play does end up breaking down. I think him and Josh Allen would be a crazy duo. Now, would he get a ton of passes? Probably not, just because a lot of attention's going to go towards him. But it would open the pass game for the rest of the receivers, which inevitably will open up for Devontae. So I think that'd be a great place for him to go. I'll stick with my guns, though. I think he's going to stay.
All right. Well, that'll just about wrap things up for the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast here on another week of football. Packers got the Rams this weekend. It's going to be an exciting one. Once again, not hoping for the win here as Packers fans, both Carter and I. Carter, I want to thank you for joining the show today. I think we had a fantastic chat. We did run, quite a long time, and I think we could have ran another hour or so, just debating on everything else. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure to check us out on Spotify at WeSPN, and we're also on YouTube at WeSPN Sports. And if you would like to comment or give us some takes of your takes, where you think Devontae is going to go, let us know. We have our Twitter handles right there at the bottom, or you can email the channel at wespnsports@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you. We'll share our takes. We'll have some fun, and then hopefully we'll show your responses on the show. Now, we will have a show next week, and I hope you all tune in once again. But I want to thank you, and signing off for Carter Decker, I'm Johnny Sam, and I hope you have a good night.